Welcome to State of the State. I'm Darlene DeRezzo, and I'm in conversation with Patricia Morgan. We had Patricia on 2 weeks ago. She's back here to finish our interview. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming back. For viewers that did not catch the last show and may not know who you are, I'd like you to introduce yourself to our viewers.
Well, I am Representative Patricia Morgan. I'm serving out my 12th year in the General Assembly, the House of Representatives. I'm from District 26, which is West Warwick, Coventry, and Warwick, right around the Valley Country Club, if any of you guys know where that is. And now I am running for the United States Senate against Sheldon Whitehouse.
Hey, what inspired you to run?
I think our country's in trouble, and I want to be part of the solution.
Okay. And how are you getting funding? How are you doing your fundraising?
I ask people for money all the time.
Okay.
That's how I get it. Yeah.
Okay. Any fundraisers coming up or anything that you
I do have some good fundraisers coming up in Little Compton.
Mm-hmm.
I have one coming up in the end of February. One that I'm really looking forward to is I'm going to have a whistle stop fundraiser on the historic train, the dinner train that comes from Newport up to Portsmouth. Mm-hmm. So we're going to have about 5 stops all the way up to the country club there, the golf course. And people can get on and we will talk and they'll get off and I'll go on to the next one. I'm looking forward to it.
When
Just like Abraham Lincoln. Huh?
Yeah, when is that?
That will be in the end of March or early April.
Okay, that sounds like fun.
It does.
So people can find you on social media and they can get those dates?
Yes, my website is patriciamorgan.com. Mm-hmm. So there is a page that, a place where you can put your name and address in and ask for, where's the next fundraiser, and I'll make sure you get the information.
Okay. So
you can volunteer too.
So where should we pick up?
Well, let's talk about, I'm putting in legislation now.
Okay.
And one of the pieces of legislation that I'm going to put in tomorrow, actually, is about affordable housing.
Okay.
There's a big push in our General Assembly right now to build a lot of affordable housing. Mm-hmm. But the only thing that makes it's a misnomer. It's really, it really is government housing. It's only affordable because the taxpayers subsidize it. And
are there income requirements to get into this housing?
Yes, there are.
Okay. And do you know where the housing is being proposed?
Oh, it's for all over the state. It is for all over the state. And let me just tell you, I am a really big fan. I'm a really big fan of senior housing. Mm-hmm. The senior high-rises that you see all over the place. Those are folks that have worked their whole lives. They've raised families. They've had a house of their own. They've contributed to their communities. And now in their later years, the money that they have just doesn't keep up with the property taxes and the sewer bills and the upkeep of a house. So not because they want to, but because they have to, they go into senior high-rises. And I'm happy, I'm really glad to give them a safe, healthy, good environment for them to enjoy their lives, mm-hmm. right? They make friends, they enjoy their lives. But I don't think that should be the goal for our young adults. The American dream for me, and I think for most people, was always that you could start poor. And if you worked hard, and if you made good decisions for your life, you could accumulate wealth. And one of the biggest cornerstones of accumulating wealth for almost every person out there, the biggest asset that most people have is their home. Mm-hmm. It's not only where they live, but it's where they accumulate wealth slowly over a course of time through paying their mortgage, right? And also because the cost of houses continues to rise, mm-hmm. About 3 to 5% a year, generally speaking. And by the time they reach their senior years, then they've owned their houses, they have wealth. They can sell that house and they can live on that wealth. Or if they're lucky and nothing has happened to them, nothing bad has happened to them in their lives, they can pass that wealth on to their kids. So it becomes generational wealth. When you talk about the affordable housing that the government is building, it's not about building wealth. It's not about accumulating wealth. It is simply about you renting and renting for your whole life. So you never get to accumulate wealth. You never get to own your own home. And that's kind of the hallmark of the American dream. So that's the hallmark of the American dream. What my legislation does is, all right, we know that last year we gave $250 million for affordable housing, and we created the Department of Housing, which is going to be a very expensive bureaucracy to kind of guide that affordable housing. This year, the governor is asking for another $100 million. So $350 million we're giving to government housing, as well as a whole department full of people. I'm asking for $30 million, and this is what it will be. We will give that to Rhode Island Housing to administer. And when either a first-time home buyer or a veteran applies, they can get up to $40,000 matching. So they have to save $40,000, and if they do, we'll give them $40,000. If they only save $30,000, we'll only give them $30,000. But it's up to $40,000 they can get. We will also subsidize their mortgage for 1% until the mortgage rates get down to 4%. So right now they're at about 6.7%. So we'd take 1% off of that, make it 5.7. It makes it a little bit easier for them to get into a home and afford that mortgage. If they do the work, we'll help them. And this money should provide enough assistance for 750 first-time home buyers or veterans to get a home. That would be huge. And the program can take donations, it can take grants, and hopefully it will continue, that pot will continue to be filled in coming years.
Yeah. Well, so what's the median price range on these homes?
I limited it to the median house price as established by the Rhode Island Realtors Association. I don't want somebody going out there and buying a mini mansion, right? If they can afford an $800,000 home, they don't need our $40,000.
Do you know what that?
Right now it's about $400,000.
Well, in Rhode Island, where is there a house right now on the market for $400,000? I think the inventory is less than 800 houses.
Well, and that's a problem, right?
Yeah.
But if we had this program, and that developers know that they're going to have a ready market of people who will buy these houses, they will build them.
They're going to build houses that can then be
There
put
will
on the
be
market
smaller houses, right? There'll be starter homes.
And where?
All over Rhode Island.
Okay. Can you be more specific?
Well, wherever they can find the land
Okay.
and start building homes.
Okay. So someone would have to sell the land?
Someone will have to sell them the land.
Okay. So the housing now that is being proposed, is there land available for that?
Say that again.
So the governor wants to build some housing now. You're talking about apartments, rentals, subsidized housing. Do we have land? Do we have property for that now?
Well, people are finding it.
state.
I just heard, and this is a worry I think that Rhode Islanders don't understand. We passed an awful lot of legislation, and I opposed it because it took the zoning board and the planning board of the municipality out of the equation. We used to be able to guide where projects would be built in our communities, and it followed a comprehensive plan, and we gutted that. So the zoning board pretty much doesn't exist anymore if it's affordable housing. And I heard that up in Lincoln, they have recently built a Section 8 housing in the middle of one of their premier neighborhoods. Well, it's not that I don't want people to have good housing, but when you do that, you can affect the value of all the other homes around it. And you can lessen the value there. So it disturbs the property values, or it lessens the property values of the other homes. Well, those people worked hard for those homes. Those people accumulated the wealth in those homes. So now their homes will be worth less. I don't think that's fair. Like I said, most people's largest asset in their life is their home. We don't want to damage the value of their homes. The second part of that is that government housing is always taxed at less than what other property owners are taxed at. So the other property owners then subsidize. And that's not fair either. But I think the biggest thing for me, the biggest reason against having affordable housing just all over the state is that it robs young people of the American dream. They deserve that. Certainly we don't want, what our promise to them is you'll get a cheap apartment for all of your life. I think we want them to have the American dream.
Okay. Do we have the jobs here in Rhode Island? What's the job market look like for young people?
Rhode Island is one of the most hostile environments for job creation.
For business development?
Yeah.
Why is that?
Oh, a lot of reasons, but most of them are political, right? Too many regulations, just a bureaucracy that is hostile. I think the zoning process can be cumbersome. We haven't done anything to streamline it, make it easier for developers to build homes.
Well, I'm talking about businesses too. So what are some of the restrictions that you see?
Well, same thing, right? You know, Quonset Park has been a gem because they have taken that whole area, they've divided it, they've got it permitted and all the things that a business needs. So as a business comes in and says, I'd like to build a plant here, they can be up and running in 6 months. Put that anywhere else in the state, it can be 2 years.
Well, what sets Quonset apart?
They pre-permit everything, right? So they have gone, the Quonset Development Corporation has gone that extra step and pre-permitted every site that's there. Made it easy for a company to come, build, and get going.
Okay.
Our other problem is the cost of electricity. We're the third highest cost of electricity. So energy.
In the country.
Yep, in the country. Haven't you noticed your electric bill lately?
I have.
Yes, I bet you have. Well, companies use a lot of electricity. They use a lot of energy. And their heating bills, their cooling bills, their electric bills have all gone up. And that's a cost of doing business, but where my bill is, what, $180 or something, which I can't imagine because I live alone. Imagine what it is for a company that runs with machinery, big heavy machinery and lights and cooling and heating. It must be enormous, and they have to factor that in. You know, it's just all of the regulations, everything that they deal with makes it a hostile environment here.
Okay. Do you know what the unemployment rate is in Rhode Island?
They say it's very low, but they count, if somebody has a part-time job, they count that as being employed. If somebody just gives up and says, oh, I'm not going to look for a job anymore, they're not counted as being unemployed. So what we really need to look at is the
So the numbers may not be accurate. Is what you're
employment
saying.
participation rate, the number of people who have a job, and it hasn't reached the level it was before 2008,
Okay.
before the Great Recession.
Okay. Now, can you do anything about the electric bill?
There are things that can be done,
Okay.
yes. I honestly think that nuclear plants are the answer. The new nuclear plants are smaller. They're just as powerful. They're underground. And and they can't melt down anymore. So that whole danger of we're going to have a nuclear conflagration, it just has evaporated. In New England, we used to have 9 nuclear sites. We're down to 2. But those other 7 sites still exist, and not one of them ever had an issue. I think we should join with all the New England sites and bring those back, because offshore wind has incredible problems, and so does solar panels, solar fields.
Okay.
I mean, I've heard from people, first of all, solar panels, solar fields, they only run for a couple of hours a day. The sun actually has to be pretty high in the sky for them to be efficient. So they're intermittent and they're unreliable. They just don't. They're only about 20% efficient, so they don't really give us a whole lot of electricity, and they take up a whole lot of land. I think people who have driven down 95 South, once they hit Exeter, there are miles that have just been, where the forests or the woods have been clear cut, and now it's solar panels. And I think that disturbs everyone, because it destroys our natural habitat.
Anything that you want to say about the habitat, our natural habitat? You said it destroys our natural habitat. Do you want to say more?
Well, you know, they're fenced because they don't want animals in there running around. So they're fenced, so the animals can no longer, they don't have woods to live in. Birds certainly don't want to be flying over them. So yeah, it disturbs our natural habitat. And one of the things, I mean, I remember growing up, I bet you did too, is we always worried that we needed trees, we needed vegetation to take the carbon dioxide, turn it into leaves, right, that we ate, things that we ate. And now we're cutting down trees. It makes no sense that we're doing this. So I think actually nuclear, they're very much smaller. I think they're an answer. And like I said, they're ones that are, I've had them explained to me, but I am not a nuclear engineer by any means.
I think you meant,
but they turn to molten salt.
But you said the trees and eating the leaves. I think you meant.
Oh, we don't eat the tree leaves, but we eat lettuce and vegetation.
Okay, so, and the leaves now can be used as compost and
Sure.
Okay. So you want to move on from that and talk about something else?
Okay.
We had Secretary Amore on the show.
Yes.
And I know that there are some things happening in his office that you wanted to address.
Yes.
Okay.
There is a program that Rhode Island joined not long ago, a couple of years ago, and it's called Erick, the Erick System. It is a private company, so it's a third-party vendor. When you are a private company, you are not subject at all to FOIA requests, APA requests. They're a private company. They don't have to give you the information, and they don't. But the Secretary of State's office gives them our personal information, all of it. Our birth dates, they got our social security numbers, our addresses, everything about us. And this organization is run by a Democrat operative who actually was fired for being hyper-partisan by the Obama administration. That's how bad he was. And so he has gone through these iterations.
Do you have his name?
Oh, I forgot it, and I didn't know we were going to talk about this, or I would have brought his name. But I am going to submit legislation to get us out of Erick.
I'm still kind of confused about what Erick is.
Oh, okay, what does it do? It takes our personal voter registration information, and supposedly it whisks it around and it removes deceased people from our voter rolls.
Okay.
I don't think they're doing a very good job of that, because we just saw that Sabina Matos actually had dead people on her nomination papers. And just recently, Vivek Ramaswamy, who's a Republican, he paid a signature gathering organization, And darned if they didn't come up with deceased people who were on the rolls. Yes, those people, I think, just wrote in the names, they forged signatures, but the fact that the names of deceased people are still on the rolls tells me that Erick is not removing deceased people from our rolls.
Okay.
All right? They also say that they are going through those names to find if people are voting in other jurisdictions.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that they're doing that or not, but I think a government agency should be doing that, because we should not be giving our government should not be giving our personal information to a private company that is opaque, that we can't see what they're doing. I mean, in today's day and age where we are so worried about people stealing our identity, using our information in nefarious ways, we're giving it to a third party, and they say, trust us, we're safe. Nobody can get your information. No, I don't trust them. I want it in a government agency. If we're going to have somebody do it, it should be with a government agency. It should not be with a third party vendor.
Okay.
I know Greg Morey's a big fan of it. He's I don't know, he's gone and he's done speeches there. It's nice to have your head patted, right? You're made pretty special when they have you come to their conferences and stuff, but it doesn't excuse him for giving my personal information and the personal information of everybody who's registered to vote to a private company who will not let us see what they're doing with our information.
Mm-hmm. Do you have an alternative?
A government agency could do it.
Do we have something in place in
Or
Rhode Island? Or do
we could go back to voting one day. I am more than willing to put in legislation that says we have a holiday on election day so that everybody can vote on election day.
Okay, so,
And that it is done with paper ballots,
okay.
in-person paper ballots.
Okay, so you're thinking of putting that legislation in?
I am.
Okay. We are down to 5 minutes or so.
All right, let's talk about the EV mandates.
Okay.
All right. The governor just decided that in 2035, we should no longer be allowed to buy gas-powered vehicles anymore. He took our choice away from us. Consumers get to choose what they want, and I'm telling you, consumers don't want EVs right now. They just don't want them. I have no problems with EVs. For certain people, they might make sense, but for most of us, they don't. I can see them making sense for people in the South where it's, you know, pretty moderate temperatures all the time, where they're just kind of tooling around, doing their, you know, in their neighborhoods, in their towns, doing their shopping, their errands. But if you're going on a long trip, they don't work very well. And up here in the North, they don't work very well either. There were news articles just recently about cars in Chicago. They couldn't get them charged for days because it was so cold. Well, it was cold here too. It was in the teens. Mm-hmm. And unless somebody has a garage where they can plug their car in at night, that means they are at the mercy of having to drive somewhere, sit there for an hour to plug in their cars and recharge it. It's not very practical for most people.
Is it very cost effective?
No, it is not that either. There was a study done by a group in Texas that said that by the time you recharge your vehicle, your EV, it comes to $17.95 for 100 miles. If you use gas, it's $13.50, say, for 100 miles. So it is cheaper to use gas-powered cars. The repairs are also unbelievably expensive. One of those batteries, you have a battery in an EV, they can cost $29,000, and they are subject to fires. They get terribly damaged if they get in the water or something. Well, we just had floods here. Mm-hmm. What happens when we have a hurricane and the grid goes down for several days?
Okay, so why would the governor like to see more EVs on the road by 2035? Or exclusively EVs by 2035?
It's not a technology that is ready yet. It's just not ready yet. It may be in the future, but will it be ready by 2035? We will have to upgrade our grid by billions of dollars.
But my question is he thinking about the environment? Is he thinking about
I'm sure he's thinking that climate change is a crisis. I don't believe it's a crisis level that would make it even possible for us to spend. And remember, it's ratepayers who do this. We will, or taxpayers, we will have to put in thousands more chargers. Those chargers cost between $1,500 and $20,000, and then really expensive installation. Billions. We will have to upgrade our grid. Billions more. The cars are more expensive than gas-powered cars. So how are consumers going to buy these cars? Not with the inflation that we see.
Will they be available on a secondary market?
Not yet. And we know that Ford is cutting production because every time that they were building an electric vehicle, they were losing money. They can't afford it. They were taking what the money that they were losing and they were spreading it out over their gas-powered cars. So everybody who was buying a gas-powered car was paying more for the gas-powered car. And then there was the government subsidies. It's not a technology that is ready yet. It may be in the future, but let's wait until it's ready.
What about all of the gas-powered vehicles, all the machinery then? What happens to all of that? Where does that go to live when it dies? When we can't have it anymore?
Well, and
is there something in the governor's plan?
No, there was a bill put in last year that they were going to get rid of all gas-powered equipment, and I said, well, how much is that?
Well, but my question is, where is it going to go? Is it going to get recycled? Is it made into something else? Like, what happens to all of that?
I don't know. I don't know, and I bet nobody has thought about that either. But they just want us to scrap all of our gas-powered cars.
What happens to all of the little shops? You know, the mechanics and
they lose their jobs. They lose their jobs. The people who build cars lose their jobs, right? And middle-class folks are really going to feel a pinch to the point where they may not be able to have a car. They may not be able to afford it. So they lose their transportation.
Well, their sense of autonomy and freedom and
independence.
Liberty. Okay. I think we're down to the wire.
Okay.
So
did I talk enough?
Yeah, so we told our audience where to find you. Let's tell them again.
PatriciaMorgan.com.
PatriciaMorgan.com. They can sign up for your newsletter. They can meet and greet you. That's coming up in March, April, the little...
yes, I'm going to have several fundraisers, so we will have them on the website so that people can find them. You can also go to, on Facebook, it's Patricia4, and 4 is spelled out, RI. So facebook.com/Patricia4RI/. And that's my Facebook. I always talk about all the legislation that I'm putting in, and you can comment on it. But yeah, come to my website. It's patriciamorgan.com. Pretty easy.
Great. Thanks for coming back.
Thank you.
And I'm Darlene DeRezzo. You've been watching State of the State. Thank you. Please find us on social media. Please look for our new Instagram account, State of the State RI.